This episode is brought to you by Head High Studio, a gallery studio in the heart of downtown Charleston. Head High Studio, the brightest walls in the city. Calling all trim lords, hipsters, burnouts, all shapers, shakers, and shredders, all painters, patrons, and preppies. Next up in the studio is Check It with Andy Davis and John Wegner, featuring original art and handcrafted surfboards by two Southern California legends. Check It is going to be one for the books. Opening May 20th with music by Mango Furs. Come check it. Art, boards, music, Andy Davis, John Wegner, Head High Studio. May 20th, 654 King Street, 6 to 10 p.m. Seriously, Andy and John's work looks amazing, and as far as surf culture, this is going to be as good as it gets. We'll be there, so I hope to see you there as well. Welcome back to 96 Wave. I'm Bryant. Ellison will be hosting the podcast today with our guest, Foster Folsom. Before we hear from the current voices in today's culture, it's important to hear and learn from the past. Foster Folsom breaks down growing up on Folly from his viewpoint. He wanted all the listeners to know that there are many voices of Folly and the low country beaches and surrounding areas. This is just his side of the overall story. So we promise him that we will dig into the community and share those collective voices. Foster and his wife Lila wrote Surfing in South Carolina, which can be purchased anywhere books are sold online, or you can pick up a copy at McEvelyn's. We really wanted to learn what Folly was like in the early 60s and into the 70s and beyond, and when surfing first hit the scene. And that is where we start the conversation today. Enjoy.
My friend, he said the only thing that they had on Isle of Palms that made him go were they had some beautiful women.
Yeah.
Beautiful girls, you know. But it was a completely different feel than Folly Beach.
Right. Was it always a little more like, I don't know, built up?
Sullivan's Island was the beach where the people went that were old Charleston, not necessarily money.
Yeah, but just old.
The ones that had been here for a while. Then it was developed in Isle of Palms was developed by the beach company, and that became something that was more of the people that were
looking for investment.
Were on the beach. There were small brick slab homes, concrete block, brick back in Forest Trail, that kind of thing. But there were more up-and-coming professionals.
Right.
Now, what's driving that when you're doing that is you want to go to the beach and you're a professional or a doctor or something like that. You're on call. You come over here, there's no pull because you can't get to work if you get called in, because if the bridge opens, the person dies, or you have, it was a question of logistics.
Right.
And Folly Beach really kicked off when we opened up the connector, and that was 1990, right after Hugo. It all seemed to hit at the same time. Folly Beach has always been a working man's beach. It was bought by Mr. Seabrook in 1920-ish as a tax sale.
Yeah.
He bought the entire island, the Seabrook Estates back there where all that was bought. My mom ended up living here because she was a single mother, and she left my stepbrother, half brother. She left him with her parents, and she went to work for the Navy during the World War II, driving a garbage truck.
Wow.
Saved enough money to buy 2 lots on Folly Beach.
So cool. So what was was that the intro to you growing up on Folly?
That's how I ended up on Folly, because my mom, while she was working at the Navy Yard, met my father, who was a chief stationed in Charleston. And he had been sent here on shore duty after the war. He had been serving in the Pacific. He came here. He was from southern Georgia. So, you know, he didn't understand. He loved fishing and that kind of thing, but he didn't have much to do with the beach. My mom developed our property down there by where the totem pole is on the beach. We owned that property right there, and my aunt bought one of our lots, so we had a little
Compound.
so yeah, a little compound, family compound, and you know, we stayed there until I actually lived on the beach till I was 30.
Okay, yeah. So, and then how much longer did y'all keep the property, or?
My brother kept it until about 1980 or so.
And so what years would that have been? Like,
Well, my mom,
Like, how
my
old were
mom
you?
and my mom and my grandfather, who was a carpenter, built our house, and my father was, of course, in duty, and that was 1947.
okay.
Now there was people out there with houses and such, but again, we're right back to logistics. Folly Beach, they talk about they built a toll road out there, across here where the toll booth is, right there where Barrier Island used to have their surf shop.
Yep.
There was some.
There was a toll booth there.
Yeah, that was called what was called toll booth.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
That was that's where the toll booth was, and it was a toll road. And there's a monument out on the beach in front of that shows when they got the toll raised, and it became a public road. But I mean, the bridge that came over, I still remember the bridge that came over. I mean, it was freaking archaic, man. I mean, it was like wood and asphalt on top of it. I mean, this thing was built with not much money.
Yeah.
You know, and it was another thing that is a hard concept for me, and certainly for you, is Folly Beach is being developed, and the Depression hits. Nobody has any money.
Right.
The lady that built the house across the street from us built the entire house on credit, and she got all the lumber and everything. Her name was Delorme, an old Charleston family, and her son Sinkler. I never really got to meet him because he went to New York to work in banking. But she built the house, and so they gave her the wood on credit, but they didn't give her garbage wood. They gave her like heart cypress and heart pine, and she built her house. And then they made money by renting the apartments later. Same as my mom and dad did. They because we started growing up as a military town, people could get there, and it was cheap rental. Folly Beach was, you could drive on the beach. We had stock car races down where the old Baptist beach house were.
Yeah.
You know, we'd raise all kinds of heck at night, my brothers and such. We'd go down and drive on the beach. I had a scooter that I would run up and down the dunes and jump in the dunes.
How was the early days? Like, so you're 2 years old to 30 living on Folly?
Well, I mean, living on Folly,
Yeah.
having property on Folly. I was 34 when I left. I sold my house and I moved to Isle of Palms, and I moved back.
So what were the earliest memories you had? Like, for me, like growing up going to Folly, I've seen it grow, but it's always been this kind of same look. Like, was it just jungle out there, and then
The backside of the island. Now, I never saw the first road that's out there. You know, they keep calling it Arctic, but they call it Atlantic. It was Atlantic Street was that street that there was Atlantic Street. But I was told the hurricane of 1939 wiped that entire street out. That was never there. But there were still houses on the beach, like you're talking about the old beach house where Eddie Taylor made his restaurant. Mm-hmm. Those were there. Obviously, there were people that could get back and forth here, like people that could get on Kiowa. But there was like nightclubs. Yeah, there was underage drinking out here. There was a party beach. Like I said, it was. You look at some of the old pictures where they had the dance pier out there. It was an entertainment center.
So was it busier back then, or not busier, but it was like, because I mean there was a bowling alley out there, a skating rink, like it was pretty.
And they had, it was it was like that, but the skating rink was something that would to keep the kids at bay. I mean, the kids that were out there, they were at loose ends. I mean, literally you could walk down the center of Center Street carrying a shotgun to go shoot marksmans, and the cops wouldn't think anything about it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now think about that.
Yeah.
Think about the concept of if you walk down that street right now carrying a 12-gauge shotgun.
Yeah.
I mean, you did.
Yeah.
I wasn't a hunter, but my friends did. I mean, we would walk, we would ride our bikes and go fishing off of the bridges and such. There was open fishing on the bridges. There was a spot run, and you had that. I would bet if you looked at the population of Folly Beach in the early 50s to maybe 1960, there weren't 500 full-time residents out there.
Okay.
Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on the time of year.
So when you're a kid out on Folly, are you seeing people surfing ever, or
No.
So you guys were the start?
Well, it was one of those things that we were becoming aware.
When did you catch wind of surfing, or how did that all, I kind of want to
Okay,
hear.
well, the first summer when I was in the 8th and 9th grade, we hung out on the beach because our parents' idea of daycare is you ate breakfast,
Yeah.
and you were put out on the beach, and then leave me alone because she was renting houses, cleaning rooms, trying to get things done, trying to make the nut for the next year. So all of my friends and I played on the beach, literally.
Right.
And we discovered skimboarding.
What was a skimboard?
In my case, it was a piece of plywood that I took and sanded down, and it was a piece of plywood that was about as wide as your coffee table, about 18 inches, and about this far down. And I would literally run at low tide. The beach was large and flat at that point,
Yep.
and you could skimboard from about 2 to 3 hours before high tide to 2 to 3 hours on incoming and outgoing. You had 6 hours.
Right.
And we would literally run and never stop.
Just skimboard all day.
Just skimboard all day. And then when we weren't doing that, there was no development all the way back from the backside of the beach. We would play in the marsh and fish or crab or whatever. And our parents loved it because we'd bring back bushels of crabs or fish and stuff. And so we supplemented the food and were having fun at the same time. It was so undeveloped that in our backyard we had an entire chickens.
Yeah.
And my grandmother would go out and wring their necks, and that's what we had for dinner.
You've had a full farm out there.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, the Tiedemans and some other families, and I forget their name, had horses off on the backside, and Freddie Adams, who eventually got horses, they were down at 2nd Street, down towards where the Sand Dollar is, and the Exchange Club, or Sandbar, and the Exchange Club, they had horses there. In fact, one of the worst.
That's like one block off the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, one of the worst accidents I ever saw was, I forget who it was returning off the beach and just ran right out, and people hit the horse, and the horse went right into the guy's car. And it didn't do anybody any good, and Folly Beach, like I said, was the bad boys' beach. I mean, there were fights every night. You grew up with it. You grew up with it. That Trigger Burke was there. We woke up one day and they're searching our cars and they're searching our school bus because this guy that's a hitman for the mafia is down here and they're looking for him.
Yeah, I heard
or
about
we
that.
had.
Do you think there's money buried out on Folly? Wasn't that a rumor?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like Toby's Island back there. There's a boat back there that's somewhere that I was told everybody on Toby's, that was where the rum runners came in during Prohibition, and they sunk a boat back there so the revenuers wouldn't get to it. Now this is before my time.
Yeah.
Or or that all the guys on Johns Island had all their stills out on Kiowa, and the federal people did a land assault to come in there, and they had a gunfight out there with the revenuers being shot at, and this is all before my time, but this is like, you know, you hear stuff like that.
So what about, so you guys are skimboarding all the time. How did like the surfboard get to you? How did you find surfing?
Well, the first time I really got interested in it, it's where Snapper Jack's is right now, was Florence's drugstore. Now, Florence Wilbanks had her husband's name, Boss, and Boss, well, I never quite figured out what Boss did, but Florence ran that as a little drugstore is what she called it, but it was really fountain cokes and stuff like that. But she let us, she was kind of like a mother. She would let us come in there, and we could read any magazines or any comics that we had and not pay for them.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that kept us in there buying French fries and burgers and stuff like that. And she got in Surfer magazine. And the first one I remember was 1962 or 3, one of the first issues.
Wow. And so were you thinking you're seeing the imagery and you're like, the ocean's right there, and you put two and two together?
You see that and you look at that, then because we're a military town, people start getting transferred in here that are in the military. Vietnam's heating up. You've got the integration thing happening.
So you guys have an influx of military coming in, and then do you see?
The first surfboard I see, let me get back to that. I got off track. So there was a place where they had steps that went down, and I still remember to this day. I went down the steps, and there was a guy with a surfboard, and I swear it was a Hobie, because I can just see the sticker in my mind. And he's got a piece of paraffin wax, and he's waxing the board. And he's military, I know that.
So he's waxing the board.
So he's waxing the board, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm going surfing." Now, we have been skimboarding.
Right.
You know, we were cool.
Yeah.
You know, we were cool. And I said, "You can't surf here. Nobody can surf here," because we'd ask our parents about it, you know, because we were coming. He went out and he caught waves. You know, and that lights the candle.
Yeah. So had you already seen the Surfer magazine?
I'd already seen the Surfer magazine.
So you put two and two
all
together.
This stuff, I start putting that together. And then this guy, Corky Hart, moves into Folly Beach, moves into Folly Road. He rents a store at 860 Folly Road, comes in here from California. His father was in the military. Builds his own moles in the back.
Yeah.
Blows his own foam and starts making surfboards.
And that's
63.
And is that what just?
And then it blew up.
Wow.
His surfboards, Jesus, they were rudimentary is the best way to put them. But I mean, they were. Have you ever heard about the boards that Hobie first made with the foam? The foam would change colors and everything. Mm-hmm. So they had put all these bright colors on them. And they called them Easter eggs because the old guys would put just fiberglass on top of the wood and you could see the wood. But he would cover it with color. That's where it started because the foam was so ugly.
Yeah,
easily worked that he made these Easter eggs. And that's what Corky's boards looked like. But he did everything. He shaped the board.
How much older was he than you?
You know, he seemed like so much older, but it was like probably 5 years.
Okay, yeah. And so did he have a surf shop?
So he had to be 20, 21. Yeah, he had his Corky surf shop.
So was that the first shop?
That was the first shop in Charleston. And Corky had this shop. And then...
how long did he stay in Charleston?
He kept that shop open for about a year.
Okay.
And now things are moving fast.
Right.
You know, the guys in East Cooper, they found boards because of the same thing we did. Military guys are coming in. This guy comes in from his father, retired from the Navy in San Diego, my friend Alan Barnett. He would be a friend for life. I didn't know that. He comes in He goes, I'll sell you a surfboard. He sells me a Hanson pig that he brought. He brought a Greg Knoll and that from San Diego. He sells me a Hanson pig.
Was that your first board?
That was my first board.
How much did you pay for it?
Gosh, I think $70.
Yeah.
And it had a ding. The whole nose was cracked out. My father we had been working on a boat, and that's where my first ding worked. Because we had been working on a boat, and I'd been playing with fiberglass. So I said, I can fix that.
Yeah.
You know, so we started. It was ugly, but it didn't take on water.
Do you know where you caught your first wave?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, tell me about that
Absolutely. Well, there's catching your first wave and going out the first time. The first time when I knew I really wanted to do it, and this is hard to believe, we're in really good shape. We've been running like crazy. We're riding the boards. And this woman, Pat Thomas, the Thomases lived on the beach at First Street, right there where, right across from Burt's on Front Beach.
Yep.
Pat Thomas and John Thomas and Ricky Thomas and Bubba Thomas, who's still here in Charleston, he and his wife owned the brick house out here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but Pat and I knew one another, and she had bought a surfboard because she sat on the beach and rented umbrellas and
Beach chairs
and floats.
Oh, floats, yeah.
Yeah, because we all were doing that too. Mm-hmm. And I forgot to say that, but that was one of our deals. We would work on the beach for the float guys, and they would let us go fetch the floats back that somebody had rented, and then we could ride them on the way back, but we had to bring them back so the guy could rent it again.
And you're just riding on your stomach.
Yeah, so anyway, I got a board from her, and a hurricane's coming. And there's waves out there, and I said, yeah, I can. So I borrowed her board, and I paddled out, and I made it out.
Yeah.
And
this is right at 2nd Street, like in front of Burt's?
2nd Street.
Yeah.
There used to be a suicide pole left over from one of the old houses that was right out on the beach there at a place called C.C. Ware. And I remember that. I paddled out, and I caught my first wave, and I got drilled. Of course, the wave, I don't know how big it was. To me, it seemed like a mountain, but, it probably was only about 3 or 4 feet,
yeah,
maybe. But I caught my first wave, but I never even really rode the board. I just went, and I lost it. So then when I bought my board, my first wave is I took it out at 6th Street on where we lived in the family. I bought it, and I took it straight out. All I had on was shorts. It's February, March. Water's cold, no wetsuit, nothing. And I paddled out, and I paddled for a wave, and this one was only knee high, and it picked me up and carried me all the way in. And at that point, I had a board, and 3 or 4 of my friends, there was a place that's like a Walmart. It's called the GEX. Mm-hmm. And they had Malibu pop-outs. A couple of my friends got those. We all had boards. And we would go out with about 10 of the Folly Beach Boys, all of us in a pile, and then we'd only have 2 or 3 boards, and each person got a wave. It didn't matter if it was your board.
Right, it's just
the same guys you played baseball in the field and that, you'd ride and go, okay, that's your wave, give me the board.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter if it was your board or not, you rode that. And so that was our first summer of surfing. And by the end of 3 months, people had their own boards. We had all finagled ways to get them either.
So are you guys, for that first summer, you're just surfing every day and like learning how to read waves and pop up?
I can tell you that it took me 2 weeks before I actually stood up and turned.
Right, yeah.
But at the same time, we had all our friends like Alan Barnett, the guy that sold me my board, was out there with us, and they could tell us what we were doing wrong.
Okay, so
Alan Barnett was an outstanding athlete, mm-hmm. and had learned to surf at Black's. At least that's what he talked about.
Right.
Black's in San Diego. I imagine it was Pacific Beach, somewhere along in there, because his father was military Navy.
And could Corky surf? Was he out there surfing, or?
Never saw him on a board.
Yeah, he just, okay.
Yeah, he was a craftsman.
Right.
He was pretty amazing.
Yeah. So did you guys surf that winter, or was that not a thing yet? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You had a board, you're going to surf.
Right.
And about that time, That's where we met the guys from the Navy that had been had started coming. We started coming out to the beach that were in the Navy or in the Air Force, which was our primary, and we had some Marines that were stationed here, but not so much Coast Guard, but Navy and Air Force started coming to the beach because we had always been a place for the Navy or Air Force to come. Started coming out there, and they started bringing their boards. There was Rick Fickman and Jim Humphreys and the Nutt brothers, Randy and Greg, and gosh, I can't think of all of them.
When you're on Folly Beach in that very first summer, are you guys starting to learn that there's sandbars that are better for waves, or do you just surf out front of your house? Like, how did that?
No, I mean, if you're serious about it.
And would you all surf
my buddy wanted a board so bad. He lived and eventually moved to Charleston, but he lived in Orangeburg, South Carolina, and he took a styrofoam board and figured out that he could get epoxy glass, fiberglass, and fiberglassed his own board and came down. And so my mother, who had, like I said, had settled here from in-state, she was friends with his mother, and he ended up spending the summer with us, and another friend for life. Here's a guy that comes down here with a homemade board, and I can remember him for all the world, he and I looking like something that's on a Beach Boys album cover. He's got the front of the boards on the noses, and I'm holding the tails, and we're walking from 6th Street looking down at 12th Street, which is cooking. And we go all the way down, and we surf 12th Street. I don't know if anybody else had ever surfed it, but that's the first time we ever surfed it. We walked 6 blocks, carrying 40-pound boards, 35-pound boards to surf it. And he goes, this place, we knew it was better.
Right. And so was 12th Street the zone for a while, like till the 80s or 90s?
12th Street was the place to go until there was the growing system that goes on Folly Beach that were first put in 1949. The one at 12th Street was the first one that went in. Hence, it was the first one that rotted out. It was nothing but posts out there, but it was like the posts were close enough that it formed a bar from 12th to almost like a sand point to 11th Street. And that's where there was predominant left.
Okay.
We had the northeasters coming in, and it was like nothing else on the beach. The washout wasn't breaking that well. 21st Street was breaking. That became the spot to go in about probably 66 or so. The bars, they migrate now. You could go out to, it's what 21st Street was breaking. It was, the West End has never been any place that you go. It's usually slow.
When did you do your first surf contest, or how did that come to Charleston?
Well, the first surf contest held in Charleston was held by the West Coast East Surf Club in 1966. But the first surf contest I ever went to was held in Beaufort because there was another cluster of of military kids that were there. And they formed the Hunting Island Surfing Association. And in October of 1965, they had the first surf contest there.
Did you surf it?
Yes. And I didn't do very well, but my friend Chip Yarnell, who was a Folly Beach guy, he was really, he was so good. He was so good. He was, it's like the first time you ever saw Kyle Busey surf.
Yeah.
You knew, even though he was a towhead, that the kid had something.
Right.
Or you see somebody surf and you go, that's it. Or you see Kelly Slater surf when he's only 10. Now, granted, that's way up on the plane, but that's the same kind of thing. Chip Yarnell got on a surfboard, and there was nothing he couldn't ride. So he went there.
Was he from Beaufort or Charleston?
He was from Folly Beach. He was one of my running buddies.
Cool.
He's, I just talked to him on the phone the other day. He's sick now and he can't surf anymore. But the last time I surfed with him was I got him on a surfboard. We were on Isle of Palms and we surfed together. And he hadn't been able to surf for about 4 or 5 years. I got on him, and the son of a bitch got on. I shot him Yeah, he did. He used to ride short boards, but I shot him a longboard. He got on it, rode it, turned up and walked to the nose, and I went, yeah, damn. I mean, he's just that kind of guy.
He just got it.
You know, yeah, just got it. I'm not one of those guys. I'm just, at my very best, I was mid-level. At my very best, I'm just, you know, as my surfing ability, I get some good rides. I have a good time. I have a lot of fun. I enjoy surfing. It's what I do. I love it. It's my identity. I mean, I absolutely love it. But I'm not kidding myself. I'm not a contest surfer. I can surf a contest every now and then and do pretty well, but I'm no Glenn Tanner. You know, what I am is nobody's ever going to outdo me for Stoke.
Yeah, that's epic.
That's the difference.
Right. And that's kind of everything. That's the longevity of it.
Look, I make no excuses. I make no excuses. I mean, even today, I am wondering what the waves are as you and I are talking about.
Yeah, I do the
That's
same.
no different.
Yeah.
You know, I go out and I get my waves. I have a few waves every now and then. You know, all I ask for in the water is just, you know, get a couple of waves, have a good time. Some days are better than others. Like this morning, I went out, I caught 5 or 6 waves. I'm happy.
Right.
I don't have to be epic or my wife. I'm married to somebody that we have an ideal setup. We love to travel. We love to surf. She loves to take pictures, and I love to have pictures taken.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a narcissist. I surf, you know. And I mean, it's a narcissistic sport. You get out of the water. Did you see my last wave?
Yeah. We're all like that, aren't we?
We're narcissists at
Yeah.
heart. I mean, we may be not, you know, we may not be aggressive narcissists, but we want to hear that.
Yeah.
I had a job one time, and this is not that long ago. To you, it'll sound like a long time ago,
Yeah.
but it was like 20 years ago. I'm working for this guy, and he wants to help me do the work. And you know, I'm doing it as a nighttime job, and on the weekends, I'm remodeling the inside of his house, putting down a hardwood floor. And the guy says to me, when are you going to be here? And I said, well, you know, I get off work at 3:30 to 4 every afternoon because I go to work at 7 in the morning and I work straight through. I said, so usually I'm going to be here at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, usually. More often than not, I'll be here by 5. And on the weekends, I get up and I'm ready to work at 7 in the morning, and I work till I'm done, until I'm tired in the afternoon. You know, and I think that's a reasonable, you know. I said, you know, if I have a problem, you know, but he says, well, I want to help you. I want to know exactly what time you're going to be here. I said, well, sometimes I'll be here at 7, and I might be here at 9. And I said, if the waves are good, I may not be here.
Yeah, that's.
I said, you know, I may not be here. And he goes, I don't know if I can work like that. He goes, I want to be here to help you and help do the work. I'm going, well, okay.
Yeah.
I said, I wrote him out a phone number, and he goes, what's this? I said, this is the Folly Beach Surf Report. When you wake up in the morning, if you call it and the guy says there's surf, I said, I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
How about that?
That works for me.
You know,
Yeah.
Here's a Folly Beach Surf Report. And we had a great relationship, you know,
Yeah.
after that, because he realized, I said, now to your advantage, I said, the chances of me not being here on the weekends are much better than me being here than not, because it's Folly Beach.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
and it's the fall. We had one of the best falls I have ever seen on Folly Beach. It was 2002, and I still remember it. It was like every weekend there
Every
were
weekend.
waves. It took me like 4 months to do a 2-month job. But he was always there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Harold.
Harold, bless him.
Huh?
Bless him.
Yeah, he lived right here in this neighborhood.
Oh, cool. One question we always talk about is how do we balance this life with being like surf obsessed? Do you have any advice to that? Like, how do you keep relationships and keep kind of a normal life when you're just looking for windows to go surfing?
You know, I was going to go to school and be an attorney,
Okay.
and I realized that I wasn't going to be a very good attorney. So I changed to be marine biology. And once I got into marine biology, I didn't care if it didn't pay much. I could figure out a way to side hustle.
Yeah.
But I was always near the water. Mm-hmm. I joined the Navy when I was out and got in the Navy Reserve. I was one of the lucky ones. I never had to go active, but I joined the Navy because I always knew that I was not going to end up in North Dakota.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
You'd be by the water.
yeah. I may end up in someplace other, but it's going to have water, and I'm going to be able to be near it. I think that you guys are doing an ideal thing here. You have found something that you do well, and you've molded it around your lifestyle to make it work.
Yeah, that's what we're trying at least. We work every day at it.
Well, it'll work.
Yeah.
If you work every day at it, it'll work. I can't say that that I'm unhappy. I'm lucky. I didn't have to make a lot of money. I didn't have to go. I had friends that were driven, and they're multimillionaires now. Mm-hmm. I have friends that went into the movie business. That went in, that got sidetracked. My friend ended up playing in the E Street Band. He's got a picture of him singing with when he was with Bruce Springsteen in the E Street Band. I saw him one night on the Tonight Show when they were doing a thing on him, and he was an excellent surfer, but music was more important to him. And I think that's what you do with anything.
Right. You just chase your passion.
Yeah. Some people's passion is making money.
Right.
Buying and selling. Doing whatever they're doing. I just really enjoy what we do here. Yeah. That's why I like talking to guys like you. Yeah. I really do. I mean, it's fun to talk to guys like you because you're doing what I'd be doing if I couldn't do what I did.
Yeah.
I'm just fortunate. And I think you're fortunate.
Yeah, for sure.
And the guys that are in the surf shop, like them or hate them, no matter what surf shop it is, they're doing what they want to do.
Right.
If they didn't, it's not like they have to be in that surf shop. They have to do that.
Right. That's true.
Just you can make it work for you.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people would love to know like the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and then into the thousands, kind of quickly like what you saw and how it kind of just kept growing.
What I saw it was like a snowball. What you saw happening was a snowball. That thing you hear about the summer of love, that started hitting, and things got crazy. You had the Vietnam War going. There was a lot of anger about the Vietnam War, especially of people my age, that we didn't have anything to say about it. There were guys in my age, and there were guys that were going and not coming back, your friends. Or when they did come back, they were different. Nobody was unaffected by the war. Mm. Some were affected because they went there. Some were affected because they stayed here.
Yeah, I see. Everyone was affected.
70, I opened up a surf shop here on James Island called Revolution Number 9, and we had David Nueva surfboards and Keenholz and Angel. We surfed those, and all of those were right there in that time of the brotherhood that you just read about in the that was all happening. We were in there with them. Mm-hmm. With David and the Santa Cruz guys. Well, I'll leave it at that. But it was all a wink and a nod. But we had the surf shop. Then I went to school, and surfing just continued to grow. It's the same thing that's happening now. What you saw, the pandemic is a perfect example.
Right.
What you saw, how it blew up.
That happened then.
That happened then.
Got it.
It was like, it just exploded.
What about, so that was all during the 70s?
Yeah, but no, that was the 60s and 70s.
Okay,
Yeah, and
yeah.
and the 80s, it kind of drifted back off. But you had that explosion. You had the shortboard revolution.
Yeah, how was that for you?
Oh, it was so amazing. I mean, I went from riding a 9/8 35-pound board to I got a 7/6 Challenger, and then my next board was a 6/6, and the next board was a 5/6 single fin. You know, that was.
Did it make all the difference? Like,
I don't know if it allowed me to surf better, but it became less one-dimensional.
yeah, I guess that's what I meant.
You know, it made you less one-dimensional. Even I find right now that even it influenced the way you would ride. I mean, you still see people logging that turn, run to the nose, and want to see how many tricks they can do. That's what 60s surfing was. Mm-hmm. That's what we all did. But by 1971, 72, you know, people were trying to see if they could jam it. You know, there's guys actually doing 360s.
And
on a single fin.
Is Glenn Tanner kind of...
That's when Glenn's coming in.
Right, in the 70s?
Glenn, 68 or
Okay.
so. You know, he came in right there. You have Rick Koger on the other side. You ought to talk to him. He's a walking... He was there and had the Natural Arts Surf Shop on Folly Beach. You want to do something about the history of Folly Beach surfing, you ought to talk to him, because he was there and he was part of getting us so that we weren't treated like a minority, because they wanted to stop surfing on Folly Beach. They came out and wanted to outlaw surfing. It was dangerous, and we didn't, looking back on it, we didn't do ourselves any favors. You know, we were, I won't say lawless, but we actually, you go, it was just the time, you just go, this is just crap, and we didn't do ourselves any favors.
Right. When you said you could park your drive on the beach, was it like New Smyrna where you guys would drive, or when y'all started surfing was that done?
No, when we started surfing that
was all done. Yeah,
but what we did do was we had beach parties on the beach, and the police would come see us, and there was guys like Avon Leckie would take a swallow of Everclear and spit it into the fire. That was his big thing. Yeah. Avon was, he wasn't much of a surfer. But he sure could drink, and he would drink Everclear, So let's get back to the 70s.
So Glenn Tanner's like coming on, and
I'd say Rick Anson and Glenn Tanner. There were a bunch of surfers out on the beach that Harry Erickson. Do you know Harry?
I don't.
He's a city councilman, but he was one of the best ones. Now everything's become cloistered, because like we were talking about, now I'm 23, 24. I'm married. Mm-hmm. I've got a child. I'm building a house, or I'm working a job, or I'm doing all this. So I'm not going out, and I may still go surfing, but I'm not in the crowd. So what you're seeing now is, rather than a participant from like the development of surfing, you're just somebody that goes surfing and likes it themselves and tends to stay out of that lane, because 5 years or 4 years is a lifetime.
Right.
Then.
Yeah.
Now, Glenn and I are really good friends and have become friends in the last 20 years, and yet there's 10 years difference in our ages.
Right, yeah.
8 years difference. Rick Anson, we know each other and can talk, and we didn't talk, they were just towheads. Being driven to their beach by their mother, reading or coming to the beach by their mother.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I like now that I walk through the neighborhood and see you and Glenn hanging out, and I'll come hear stories. It's fun.
Yeah, it's great for me. It's great to have you guys here, because when I moved into this neighborhood, this is what I envisioned this being. This is what Old Folly Beach was like. Mm.
Yeah, I love this little neighborhood. It's fun.
It is just perfect.
Yeah.
For me. It just really is. But, I can give you up until that point and give you a true feeling for it. I can tell you that I was really busy in the 80s.
Right.
Because
kids
I had 2 failed marriages. We had Hurricane Hugo, which you think about as just a singular event. It took me 4 years to get my facilities back.
Wow, yeah.
I was completely focused 4 or 5 years. I had things happening that were like, we had buildings that were inundated with salt water and didn't think anything about it. 5 years later, there's water peeing everywhere because the water has gotten in the insulation and the pipes are leaking, and they're leaking on little spots where the salt's been. And we have to, we're trying to get all the research done. At the same time, I still have surfboards, and I'm still, I'm kind of ADD. That's what my wife calls the garage. She calls it the ADD garage, because I'm either working on a car or working on the boards or doing something, because I do what I want to do. But but that was me.
Right.
And what you see now is somebody I'm retired now, and I've gone in about 2000, I knew I was retiring. So it's hard to believe. And I would have never thought, even when I was your age. Mm-hmm. What are you, 35?
33, yeah.
Okay, you're 35.
Okay.
35, call it.
Yeah, for sure.
At 35, I would have never thought that at 76, I would be talking to you about how good the surf was this morning.
Right, that's incredible.
Yeah,
and surfing.
Yeah, and surfing.
Yeah.
And feeling, rightfully or wrongly, the emotion that I feel when we start talking about it. When you start me talking about those 60s and 70s, it's like I go walking out at 13th Street and I can hear my friends in the water.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's what's special about surfing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to surf when I'm 76. How was it? Just
don't stop.
Just don't stop. Yeah.
Don't stop. I mean, even if you're injured, I go, I don't mean that I'm best. I was at the gym at 5 o'clock this morning, and I was in the water at 6:30. I'll be at gym tomorrow sometime, but I knew there were going to be waves today. So I said, I've got to get up and go to the gym at 5 because I can't go to the gym at 8.
Yeah.
But, I've been through multiple sicknesses, and I've been through car wreck. I've been through things, and if it would have been easy to stop, if I'd have stopped, I'd have never come back.
Yeah.
I broke both of my knees and my ankle in a car wreck out on Folly Road going to the beach. Ran into a garbage truck. Mm. I could have easily quit then. The doctor told me that I wasn't going to, that would be, I couldn't climb a ladder and I couldn't do all this. And I called it bullshit, It's what you want to do. And that doctor didn't surf, but I found one that did.
Mm-hmm. So they understand.
And I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, we can do that.
Yeah. And
he made it so that I could, Wow. So, I mean, that's, it's easy to quit.
Mm-hmm. That's easy.
It's easy to go, the waves aren't good enough. It's easy. It's hard to go out there when it's shit like it was this morning and say, all I got to do is catch one.
Yeah, just keep it going.
Right. All I got to do is do a pop-up.
Mm-hmm.
Ask Eddie Budoff. Eddie Budoff will tell you, he goes out, and once he's gotten 5 pop-ups, he feels like he's ahead of the game, and he's on his way. Eddie Budoff has got so much insight. If you can get him to sit down, he is one of the most undercover. He is absolutely a craftsman at what he does. He is meticulous at what he does. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, he's very observant. And he has been around since he's one of those that you're talking about Glenn. He was right there.
Right, okay.
And they're all surfing together. But he became a shaper, and he took and did what he did. And he's done this to make it so that he was there. Ask him how he did it.
Okay, yeah.
He found what he did well, and then figured out a way to fit it around that. He ran a surf shop. He shaped boards. You know, he's good, because he's meticulous. You know, and he's not fast, but in that, you know, you've got something that's got a lot of thought.
Yeah.
You know, Richard Prowse father, you're Lumpy. You know, I can keep going on and on. Lumpy did the same thing.
Yeah.
Lumpy's an excellent shaper, but you know, he did what he had to do. He went and lived at Maui and lived in Oahu.
Yeah. Did you ever think about moving to a more surf-rich spot, or was Charleston just always going to be home?
Well, the circumstances were that I had, with my first wife, we had a child, and my first wife did not travel. Period.
Yeah.
You know, it was a big deal to go to Hatteras.
Right.
You know, she would travel that far, but she wasn't a traveler, and to relocate someplace else, I don't know when. You know, that didn't happen, and so circumstances were that then I got a job at Marine Resources, and that centered me right here.
Right. I think for like Bryant and myself, as we're like beginning our careers and we're often wonder, like, if we're so surf craved, should we live somewhere with better waves? But we do love Charleston. I'm just trying to get your take on. You
know, I can't speak for anybody else, but there's no place like Charleston. Even as crowded as it's gotten and as irritating as it is trying to go somewhere, there's nothing like it. The friendships you've got here, you won't get those same friendships when you go someplace else. There's going to be a void in your life. You know, these people that I've got, you know, they're what make me complete. You know, they make me complete. You know, I may be a little bent, you know, and I may have a weird sense of humor and that kind of thing, but it's mine, and my friends know it, and we have a good time. I'm not, you know. We went to Nova Scotia, and I spent 3 months there. Right. And I've carved out a place there, and we just bought a house in Fernandina. Right. You know, but this is still home. It'll always be home. Yeah. It'll always be home, and I didn't need to go anywhere else. Yeah. You know, there's no need. Right. It's so easy to travel anymore. Right. What does the future hold for you? And what this holds for me right here is that Charleston has become so crowded and so difficult for me to put up with it, that I like surfing with less crowds. Not necessarily better waves, but less crowds. Right. Because, unfortunately, not only is surfing narcissistic, it's also youth-oriented. So sometimes I have to tell somebody, I said, you know, you have an infinite number of waves in your tunnel. Right. I can see the light in my tunnel. Yeah. So I get some every now and then, because you can paddle 50 feet over there, and I've been sitting here. That's not cool. It's called respect. Absolutely. And so you can get that respect by traveling some. And we started going to California and just staying on the beach with Sano, where I'm not the oldest person on the beach. And I can talk to guys, and all of us have the same thing, because we have respect for one another in the water. I got a wave. It's one of you guys' turn. Right. You know? Yeah. Everybody gets a turn. Right. So are you guys still going out there? We haven't been since the pandemic. Right. Do you plan to try to make another trip? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And you'll drive your van? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about this van. I got a new one coming. Okay. I'm going to be selling this one. But yeah, I mean, and you know, crazy stuff. I mean, I was surfing in Nova Scotia and met a guy from California surfing there, and Lane, and Lane and his wife, and they had flown in, didn't know anything about it, showing them the spots and everything. Met them, thought I'd never see them again. I'm in San Clemente at a board show, and there he is showing boards, and he and I strike up a friend again in San Clemente.
Yeah, that's great.
You guys being in the movie business and doing the entertainment business and what you do, how truly small the degrees of separation are. They talk about 3 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
That I know you know them.
Right.
And by the time you get to the third person, there's somebody that knows both people.
Yeah.
I think it's more like 2 in surfing.
Yeah, as I said, it's real close.
I know people or they know of me.
Right.
Just because we're old and we're still alive.
Yeah.
I talk to people. I know people up and down the East Coast just because, and sometimes, and the same with you. You're in the movie business and doing this, so you have a one strata where you're dealing with professionals and who know you,
right,
and know what you're doing.
So how did you grow your surfboard collection? I think you probably have one of the best in Charleston.
The first when I really became a collector, and I bought older boards because when I started longboarding again in 1978 or 77, there wasn't a lot of longboards around. So I found myself a Hansen 50/50, and I found a Challenger Micro that had been stored, and that's what I rode until I found Spectrum.
Okay.
And I found Spectrum through Nancy Polk and Jerry Wackhorst.
What is Spectrum?
Spectrum surfboards out of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
They were really good,
Mm-hmm.
and they were good boards. They made good long boards, and they were, and it's like my friends had them in a shop, and eventually Bill and Betty Sue had them, and at Ocean. And I rode those. I gravitated back to longboards, and then my first board, I was also restoring English motorcycles. I had a couple of Triumphs and a Norton and a BSA, and then I found out about this guy that has a bunch of parts that's decided he's going to get out of restoring, and I go over to his house. And I'm in his house, and I'm looking at all these parts and pieces that he has, and he tells me he wants $500 for it. And I said, I look up, and there's a Hansen 50/50 on the wall, painted black with a shaker can, with a rattle can.
Where was that in Charleston?
It was at the house at that point was in the neck area of Charleston, up behind the Citadel. Mm-hmm. So I look up there and I said, "Where'd you get that?" He said, "Oh, we found it under an old house on the Isle of Palms way back in the day. Now it's painted black." And I said, "You want $500 for this stuff?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, I'll give you the $500 for that, but that surfboard goes with it." He goes, "Well, my son learned to surf on that surfboard, and besides, I don't give anything away." I said, "Okay, I'll give you $500 for the stuff, all the pieces and parts, and $5 for that surfboard." He goes, "Deal."
You just wanted to,
I said, "Yeah, you haven't given it away, and your son doesn't give a damn about it." So I brought it home, and we cleaned it off, and I still have it hanging in the garage. It's a 3-stringer, almost perfect Hansen 50/50. From my guess is 1965 or 66, almost identical to one that I bought, that I've ridden, that I was riding when I was doing McKevlin's ding repair. So that was my first one, and then it just kind of went from there. There weren't many people doing it. This is 91. That doesn't sound like so long, but that's 29 years ago.
It's a while ago now.
And I was surfing the washout one day, and I saw this girl dragging a surfboard down the beach, and I'm sitting there talking to somebody, and I said, "That's a red fin. It's a Henson red fin," which is really hard to find. Mm-hmm. And especially when it's an HY2, it's not one of the, it's one of the ones that he shaped for. And I went up to try to get it from the girl, and they had found it under a deck after Hurricane Hugo. A lot of boards were washed out from under these beach houses. And so they ended up with that. So that was like my second board. Now I thought I was, and then it just became one of those things like people said, oh, he'll buy it.
Right.
And I mean, like I paid $5 or $50 or whatever, and those days are gone.
Yeah, I paid $50 for that one behind you.
Yeah, and it kills me. To me, when I started collecting, it was like, these boards are not machine operated. They were literally a work of art that needs to be preserved. It was taken from raw, a block, pieces of wood, was shaped. And if I hadn't have gotten them, they'd ended up in the trash.
Right.
In the 90s. Now, not so much.
Right.
But I mean, I literally, that Bing balsa that I have was in under a stack of lumber in a lumber in a shed on Folly Beach, so with its fin sticking out there, and they had lumber piled up on top of it.
Yeah, it's turned into a different thing. Did you think, can surfboards change any more than it is? But from you in the 60s to now, like, did you think it would be where it's at? Like, did you ever see that design in your head?
A lot of the designs you see coming right now, are you only limited by what you think you're limited by? Mm-hmm. We were talking about in 69 and 70, some of the stuff that we're doing right here, but not multi-fins necessarily. It was somebody else to come with multi-fins. But Jerry Wackhorst in Hilton Head and his wife, Nancy Polk, who used to, was East Coast champion off of Folly Beach.
Okay.
She should be in the East Coast Surfing Hall of Fame. It's a shame she's not. We have only one South Carolinian in the Hall of Fame, and that is absolutely a disgrace. And this woman's good. Yeah. But anyway, what I was getting to was we would sit around and come up with ideas, you know, and we were talking about, and he started building kneeboards. You should see some of the spaceships he built.
Yeah.
But what happened was stuff evolved so quickly that people didn't really work it.
Right.
Did I see surfboards going where they're going? You know, the powered surfboards. My friend wanted to do one where he used, he was talking about using peroxide and baking soda and using it to give him an extra juice of speed and setting up jets on it.
Yeah.
How effing crazy is that?
Right.
Because your ass is going to have to hold on. It's like taking nitrous and putting it in your car. You know? And,
yeah.
But I mean, there were guys, you know, you're only limited by what you want to do. You have, you know, the first time I saw Kelly Slater do a fin slide like he did, it was amazing. I mean, a control fin slide. You know, surfing is going to always involve. Now we have the foils and we have wind surfing and kite surfing, but
now we have wave pools, which is wild. The wave pool, revolutionary is wild.
Yeah, well, wave pools. I guess they have their place, but you know, I tried surfing one, and I come back and I go, you know, it's like the difference between swimming at the Y and swimming in the ocean.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's the same wave every time, but a certain bit of it is like the mystery of having, you know, how interesting would it be if to have a wave pool? It's fun to go surf, but you know, the variety it's like,
it's limited.
What if every one of us were the same?
Yeah.
If you and I were sitting here and we were just two robots and we were absolutely the same with no personality difference, now what would that be?
Yeah, no fun.
You know, no fun whatsoever. And I just think that, you know, we're always going to have some kind of machinery to make it work.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, I never thought I'd see somebody on a set of skis riding a board, riding a wave. Frickin' snow skis.
Yeah, that was wild. And the dirt bike, did you ever see that?
Yeah, I saw the dirt bike. I mean, you know, that's just, you're only limited by your imagination, you know, what you're willing to try.
Yeah, it's wild. I think that's great. I appreciate your time and hanging and chatting with us. It's been fun. It's cool to have like a legend in the neighborhood. So it's awesome.
Well, I don't feel like a legend. I just feel like, that's one of the things we were talking about, and I feel like the legends are the Mickey Munoz and those people, and the people that taught me to surf, and the people I looked up to. And, I've met a couple of these guys, and yet we're the same age, but we looked up to them as gods.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, when I met Skip Fry, I couldn't talk.
Yeah. I surf with Skip Fry too. Is Skip still alive?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. But I met these guys, and I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
Because it's like somebody you had never heard of, Little John Richards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had to surf against Little John, 1963 U.S. champ, riding a Dave Sweet surfboards.
Yeah.
And when I realized I was surfing against him, I lost my shit. I had to surf.
Did he wax you?
Huh?
Did he wax you?
Oh, we were great.
Yeah.
I beat him.
Oh, epic. Yeah.
Yeah, but I surf with guys like that, and I go, they're just like us.
Yeah.
So that's when you say, you're a legend.
No.
I maybe in my own mind, but but around, I just feel like one of the guys. All of us. I was fortunate. I've been so fortunate to be able to do what I do, mm-hmm. and to still be doing it.
Yeah.
And to still be able to talk to you guys, and hope that one day that we realize in surfing that it's not all just the here and now. The history really it matters too. There's not just me, but there was all these people that have contributed to this, and if they didn't, you wouldn't be here.
Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of what this book is about.
Right.
That we did. We didn't want it to. We missed so many people. Mm-hmm. But we're limited by, because you guys know, because you do the movies and such, they wanted color photographs. Right. Oh, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
First thing, you couldn't afford it when you took pictures. And if you were taking pictures, you weren't surfing.
Right. Yeah, we know that.
And that's the point.
Right. Well, we appreciate you for including us in that book.
Well, we wanted to, because it's important to us to show where surfing's gone, and that it was important to us to show that the Jenny Browns, you guys, even the people at Ocean Surf Shop, the people at McKevlin Surf Shop, people at any surf shop.
Yeah, they're a big part.
They're a part of this. If they weren't there, where the hell would you get your board?
Yeah, exactly.
When I retired from DNR, I had never been able to go to Hawaii, so I retired and went to Hawaii and worked carpentry work.
Okay, cool.
And surfed Oahu and Little Maui for about 6 months, 5 months.
Oh, cool. So, that's great.
Just,
yeah.
60-year-old man living out his, you're going, oh, I've always done this. I made a point of sending postcards or little emails to all my friends, like the Eddie Budoffs, that had gone there right after high school while I was working and raising a family.
Right, yeah.
I'd call them and go, hey,
reliving the days.
Yeah.